What's up, potheads and political junkies? You're watching Cannabis Culture News Live. I'm Jeremiah, editor of Cannabis Culture Magazine. Big show for you today. Kirk Tousaw, super attorney, on the show. We're going to try and actually have him Skyped in. We're hoping that will work. Also on the show, Jordan and Britney from Potparazzi, the new show on Pod TV. If you didn't just see it before the show started here, you can watch it on the front page of Cannabis Culture. They're going to be on talking about their show and some of their antics, and also about their court case, which has to do with the dispensary that Britney and Jordan operated that was shut down by the RCMP in Burnaby, and they both caught charges for that, so we're going to talk about that. Also on the show, David Malmo-Levine, activist extraordinaire from the herbmuseum.ca, will bring an artifact on as usual, hopefully, if he's in the house. I think he is. And also my friend here, sorry, what's your name? Tony, and he's a 9/11 truther. He's going to be on off the top of the show to talk about something that I'm a 9/11 truther, and these guys always promote our stuff. We like to promote theirs as well, so we'll have him on just talking about Richard Gage coming to Vancouver from Architects and Engineers for 9/11 Truth. So we'll talk about that. But I wanted to quickly play a little clip here for you guys. I was going to play this last week on the show, but we didn't end up doing any news because it was such a busy show. And this is something that's been on the front page of the YouTube page of LEAP, Law Enforcement Against Prohibition. They are such an awesome group. Now, this clip is fantastic. This is Neil Franklin. He's the founder of that group. And, whoops, I'm just going to cue it up. The real reason I wanted to show this clip is because it features a little segment that they filmed in Latin America with Joe Biden, the Vice President of the United States, who, if you don't agree with me, after this clip you probably will, is kind of a dickhead. And in this clip, well, you'll see why. I'm just going to play the clip, so.
U.S. Vice President Joe Biden has told Central American leaders that the U.S. will continue funding a military offensive against drug trafficking. Biden made the comments during a trip to the region. Leaders like Guatemalan President Otto Perez Molina have recently proposed legalizing drugs as a way to curb drug violence. But on Wednesday, Biden said the U.S. and other countries are firmly opposed to that sort of legislation.
Each president spoke, and not one of them argued for legalization. But all of us agreed, and I agreed, that this is worth a debate. And the reason it's worth a debate is that when you debate this issue, you're able to expose some of the myths that, understandably, people who are tired of the violence and worried about the violence, which is real, they think somehow legalization will change that. It does not. It does not.
Well, it's not just in Central America that there are those who feel that legalizing drugs would take the power away from the violent gangs that traffic and sell them. It's growing currency, or having growing currency here in the U.S. as well. Retired Maryland Police Major Neil Franklin is the founder of one such group advocating legalization, law enforcement against prohibition. He joins us now live from New York. But that's the Biden view, that's the Obama administration's policy. Where does that leave Central America then, do you think?
Well, I don't understand how Vice President Biden can say that legalization would not reduce the violence. We've experienced that here in the United States back in the 1920s with alcohol prohibition. As soon as we repealed the 18th Amendment, violence went down dramatically.
But what is going on there? Is the Obama administration then trying to spread the Mexican model, some of the results we actually were just going through a few moments ago, to Central America now?
How can you be wanting to spread a failure? The Mexican model is a failure. Every year they have more murders than the year before. 4.5 to 5 years of this policy in Mexico, it's been a travesty. I mean, it hasn't worked. It's clear that it hasn't worked. The main issue here is the murders that are occurring because of the drug trafficking routes prohibition.
It's interesting also that just yesterday, I think, the U.S. said that Colombia now remains the world's largest cocaine producer, and of course this militarization of drug policy in many ways began there.
Absolutely. You know, and this administration, as with previous administrations, you know, they talk about how Colombia was such a success, but that's not true. And even when they did reduce cocaine production in Colombia, all they did was move it to another region, such as Bolivia or Peru. So it's like squeezing a balloon. It's just going to expand somewhere else. The bottom line is we can't end the appetite for these substances. So we have to figure out a way, which we believe is legalization, to reducing the harms, learning how to live with these substances.
But how serious can these Central American countries be without U.S. cooperation, do you think?
Well, they can be very serious about this, because if they collectively come together, as we're seeing here, to move towards legalization, and let me say the discussion to move towards legalization is very important, because I agree with Vice President Biden. The truth will show itself if we move to a serious discussion. So if they band together, they're going to be very successful. We're already seeing this. You know, we have prior presidents from Latin America who have already come together, you know, under the umbrella of the drug policy organization. And now the current presidents are following suit. So they can be very effective. We're being very effective here in the United States as well.
Even some members of the Republican establishment are getting on board apparently as well. Thank you very much, Neil Franklin. Thanks a lot.
Thanks for having me.
Weird, the transition. All right, guys, so that was a good little clip. Neil Franklin. I met him, actually. He came to town, and we saw a speech by him and some of his other... I can't remember who it was that was all there, but he was fantastic. He was with some other members of LEAP here in British Columbia, because there's the Canadian and American LEAP. And if you haven't checked out LEAP, go to leap.cc. Their website has tons of great stuff on it, and also their YouTube page always has great videos clipped out from the news. So I think what we'll do is bring up Tony. Tony, you want to come on over here, and we'll talk a little bit about what's going on with your guys' event here in town.
All right.
So Tony, good to have you on the show.
Thanks, Jeremiah.
Maybe just you know, here you can see where you're standing there, so you might want to get a little closer to me, so we're both in range of get a little closer this way. I'll move the bong out of the way a little bit.
Ah, there we are.
So maybe just tell people, Tony, what I mean. You guys are always very supportive of us. We go to a lot of the same rallies. In my opinion, the pop movement and the other activist communities need to work together a lot. And I am, you know, coincidentally a 9/11 truther. I do believe that the official story of 9/11 is a complete fraud and total bullshit. And if anybody wants to challenge and debate me on that one, we can sit down and I will change your mind. If you, and I'm sure Tony could do the same thing. And so Tony, tell us about the event in town and about architects and engineers, Richard Gage, the whole thing.
Well, there are lots of people that would love to debate on the merits of the facts, whether 9/11 was done by Al-Qaeda or somebody else.
Right.
Richard Gage is an architect who founded a group, Architects and Engineers for 9/11 Truth.
Yeah.
He actually launched his career in Canada, and he started in Winnipeg, and the next place he came was here. And since then, he's kind of made a career out of going
doing speeches.
Doing speeches.
Well, he's in high demand because the message he has is so potent.
Well, it's very important to us all. If you think about the what must be in place to get away with a crime like 9/11, you need a lot of cooperation at all levels of government, at all levels of the media. And I believe this is a big problem. I was quite shocked, of course.
Oh, do a live show.
I was quite shocked, of course, that when I happened to get a computer and found out that the U.S. government, the Pentagon, couldn't supply a photograph of a plane hitting the Pentagon. And after that, I looked into it a bit more, and it's pretty much none of the official story is true.
Right.
So
talk a little bit more about architects and engineers and what they represent.
Well, Richard Gage founded a group, and where anybody that's an architect or an engineer can join up with him. He would like it. I believe there's 1,800 members. I guess it must be more than that now. And he is he's dedicated for intelligent discussion about what he shows it from an architect's point of view, how the towers couldn't have collapsed without some other kind of stimuli other than planes hitting them,
right?
Especially Building 7, which wasn't hit by any plane.
Right. And if you haven't heard of WTC 7, that's really one thing that converts people from believing one way to another. When you look at Building 7 come down, anybody who knows anything about the way controlled explosives in a building work can take one look at that and realize that that's what they used there. So, I mean, the story is super fishy. So, and Richard Gage, so what's the event here, and what's the group that's bringing them? You guys are Vancouver 9/11 Truth?
Vancouver 9/11 Truth, and also Zeitgeist is also behind Richard Gage. So we brought him here.
Cool.
That's who. That's yeah.
And so when is the event?
The event's tonight, tomorrow night, 9 o'clock on Saturday night at Denman Theatre.
Here in Vancouver.
That's right, here in Vancouver. We'll be there a lot early. There'll be something going on there in the vicinity as far as 9/11 Truth goes before the event.
Oh, cool. Excellent. And what are tickets worth, actually?
Well, it's by donation. I think the suggested donation is $20, but anybody will be allowed in for less than that. We just want to get the awareness, raise the awareness of the population about these kind of things that we're involved in.
Cool. Now tell people a little bit more about Vancouver and 9/11 Truth.
Well, it started before my time. I didn't find out about 9/11 until the group had already started. And I didn't get involved with any kind of activism until I found out about the chemtrails. I don't know if you know about the chemtrails.
I
but
do, yeah.
That's quite I found that really disturbing.
Yeah.
And I thought I'd better try to do something. So I joined up with the group, and there was quite a few of us at that time. And we actually bought a bus, and we took a petition to Ottawa. We had already sent the petition. It had been read out in Parliament by Libby Davies, and the rules about a petition are after so many days they have to read it out in Parliament, and then the appropriate minister has to respond in some kind of way.
Right.
So Libby Davies had read this out, and it had timed so that the September 11th was right around the day, a couple of days after the day when Stockwell Day, at the time, who was the minister of whatever, he was supposed to answer this.
Yeah.
Minister of External Affairs, I think.
Yeah.
And then he was he didn't answer it on time. He just ignored it. Then the post was passed to Peter MacKay,
Right.
who eventually wrote us a letter, which was I think 2 lines long. It said, or 1 line even. It said, "We see no need for an investigation into 9/11."
Right. Well, and that's what they always say. They just don't want to look into it, because if you do start looking into it, you realize that the official story just cannot make sense.
Right.
Yeah, it's crazy. Well, Tony, I really appreciate having you on. Is there anything else? Can you drop your website address for?
Absolutely. Vancouver 9/11 Vancouver 9/11truth.org.com. They both go there.
Cool.
Go on that one.
Excellent. And people can find out more about Richard Gage at Architects and Engineers for 9/11 Truth.
That's
What's
right.
their address?
Architects and Engineers for 9/11 Truth. You can also find that through the 9/11 website. And
Right. Okay. And that's their website address, or isn't it ae911truth.com or .org or something like that?
yes, that's
right.
true. Is
Yeah,
it?
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You're
I've been there
right.
a few times myself.
Okay.
All right. Well, cool, man. Well, thank you very much for coming on. I
thanks,
appreciate it,
Jeremiah.
Tony. Excellent. And good luck. I don't think I'll be able to make it to the speech myself or to see Richard Gage, but I've always wanted to see him.
You'll be there in spirit.
Oh, that's right, exactly.
Yeah.
And if you want to find out more about Richard Gage, go online and check this guy out, because he really does make a compelling case. And we always want to give these guys props. I think it's beneficial that we all help each other in the activist community, whether or not you believe it totally or not. Just free speech, getting out there, spreading these messages. It's usually the ones that don't make it into the mainstream media. You find there's the most truth to those. It's a kind of a good gauge. If the mainstream CNN and Fox and these guys aren't really talking about it much, or when they do talk about it, they're putting it down, you can bet there's something to it. All right, so I want to play another video here. I'm going to bring on David. I think David Malmo-Levine is going to be here a little bit later, but I quickly wanted to play this clip, and then I'm going to bring on Jordan and Britney. But this is a clip from the Young Turks. Now, this week, the Young Turks it's a great internet show. It's like the biggest internet show in the world, and they always talk about pot. They're very friendly to the pot community. They think it should be legalized, so on and so forth. But on this week's broadcast, one of the episodes of this week's broadcast, Cenk, I believe you pronounce his name, it's spelled C-E-N-K, the host of the show, he talked about cannabis, and he talked about the harms of cannabis, and he was talking about Mitch McConnell saying that cannabis will kill you. But he said that long-term, well, I'm just going to play you the clip, and then we'll talk about it on the other side quickly. I always spoil it before I play the clip.
You have a big mouth, Jeremy.
I know, it's true. All right. Here it is.
Mitch McConnell was corresponding with a constituent who's very concerned about our marijuana laws. He is asking for legalization, but of course Mitch McConnell is against that. So in this letter back to the constituent, Mitch McConnell says the following, that he will not legalize marijuana because of the harm that substances like marijuana and other narcotics pose to our society. I have concerns about this legislation. The detrimental effects of drugs have been well documented. Short-term memory loss, loss of core motor functions, heightened risk of lung disease, and even death.
Death. Because it's well documented that if you smoke pot, you die. It's happened how many times?
Never.
Never.
Okay, look, we say that often, and then people get, you know, a little critical of us because they feel like we belittle the effects of marijuana, which is understandable, okay? There are definitely side effects to marijuana that you should know.
You might have to spend a lot of money at Taco Bell. You might have to order a lot of pizza. There's a lot of downsides to marijuana you should be aware of. I don't want to mislead people.
This is actually something that was reported in 1988 by the Department of Justice and the DEA.
Okay.
All right. It says that to induce death from marijuana, you would have to smoke about 20,000 to 40,000 times as much marijuana as is contained in one marijuana cigarette. To be more specific, to induce a lethal response, you would need to smoke 1,500 pounds of marijuana in 15 minutes.
So, Mitch McConnell was right. If you smoked 1,500 pounds of marijuana in 15 minutes, you would die. Now, you're going to go and tell me that that wasn't an accurate statement?
Mitch McConnell was right. We should not legalize it.
Jesus just said, we should try it. We're going to try dying from smoking too much marijuana. We just want to help Mitch McConnell out and see if his theory is right.
Right.
Okay. No, we will not be doing that. And here's what else won't be happening. You won't die if you smoke marijuana. Now, it does have negative consequences in other ways. If you smoke it very consistently for a long, long period of time, you can get lung disease as you would, of course, and maybe even lung cancer as you would from smoking cigarettes. So, of course, there are downsides to it. But this fear-mongering by the Republicans is blatantly stupid.
Yes. And Republicans always use death. Like, death is their secret, like, weapon.
Yeah.
Right? If there's
if you agree with Obama's healthcare plans, death panels. Grandma's gonna die. Smoke marijuana? Die. D-I-E. Die. Okay? Anything else? Oh, of course, if we don't attack Iran, everybody's gonna die. D-I-E. Die.
Even with, like, abortions, right? Anti-abortion legislation, like, they want doctors to tell women, like, don't have this abortion, you're gonna get breast cancer. You're gonna die.
Yeah.
Like, always. They always use that argument.
I can't see it.
All right.
Yeah,
So,
that's good.
oh yeah, that's looking all right. There we go. Look at that. So I'm here with Britney and Jordan. Potparazzi, the new show on Pot TV. Ladies, why don't you tell these guys? Some people were watching it before the show, I'm sure, but this is going to be in the on-demand library as well. So tell people about your show and what you guys are doing. What's the show?
Well, Jordan and I decided that we would make our own internet show. Thus, here we are. It ranges from politics to celebrity to cannabis, pretty much anything. We also have fun little segments like Guess That Strain with Dana Larson. I don't know if any of you just saw it or not, but it's a very fun little contest where Jordan and I get a nug of weed, marijuana, and we smell it. And between the two of us, we both have to guess which strain it is. And whoever loses has to do something silly. We actually just did it today. Unfortunately, for our viewers who are out there, the gigantic doobie did not work out because she looked more like a bad Roman toga person. Didn't work out at all.
It wasn't good.
It wasn't good.
But I'm sure it was still suitably embarrassing, wasn't it?
It was embarrassing. We actually have some footage of me trying to make it work.
She
did not work at all.
She can even walk, right? And we were gonna put her on the SkyTrain and like make her go around and sit and talk to people, but she couldn't even walk. So I didn't want her to fall and break her arms or something. So we have a different stunt that we have to show you for the loser of Guess
It's
That
420.
Strain.
Happy 420.
Happy 420.
We should load up a bong rip here and
I
show me
have
your
one
bong.
loaded.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
Well, here,
Hash.
wait. Let's load this other one up. Are you smoking out of the bong too,
I'm
Jordan?
okay right now,
You're
I
good
think.
out of the bong. Are
Yeah.
you sure?
This is my
Okay,
Britney
all
bong.
right, all right.
Isn't it pretty?
That is
Maybe that'll
pretty.
be a new fixture on our show
It
every
has a new
week.
butterfly. Oh, it definitely is.
It's very cute.
Very
It's a
Actually-
little one. It's a lot like my high guy, but just a little smaller version.
I actually just saw it sitting on Marijuana Man's shelf with a butterfly hanging out, and it turns out it's remnants of the Halloween party.
Oh.
But it's now my bong.
Oh, there you go.
New bong.
You adopted it, did you?
I did. I've adopted it. It was just a little stray.
Do you have a lighter?
I do not have a lighter.
We need 2 lighters so we can do simultaneous bong ripping.
Thank you.
Oh, I have one in my pocket, so we're covered. We are covered. All right, and I just wanted to talk about the clip we played as well, the Young Turks, but we'll talk about that after we're done our bong rip.
All right. Happy 420, guys.
Yours is way better than mine.
Simultaneous.
Ooh. Cleans. My lungs aren't as strong as that, so.
Well, you've got a show now, so you're going to have to throw down. You're going to have to be getting high constantly, and your lungs will get turned to stone. These steel lungs.
No, that was actually part of the problem. Was I was high constantly, and I needed to give them a break. So right now I've been smoking a little less, which is good because then it is much more effective.
Right, I see. Well, it depends. It's different for everybody, I think.
Have you ever went on a hiatus?
I've been on forced hiatuses before, yes.
And how long have they lasted?
Well, the longest was probably a couple weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was living with my grandparents at the time and unfortunately didn't have access to weed in the United States. So, but it wasn't the end of the world or anything, but I would prefer to have it morning, noon, and night, though.
Jordan, would you like to tell them about our baking segment on our show?
Yes.
Yeah, we're also going to be doing baking. Maybe not every week, but probably, if not every week, every other week. So yesterday we used Watermelon's recipe. So we're going to do a couple of her recipes, and then we have another recipe we'll be doing for ribs. So that should be on next week's show.
Which we're going to cook for Jeremiah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
We're going to make rib dinner.
I'm cooking right now. I have to undo my collar. I'm just overheating.
It's because we're here.
2 hot ladies next to me. My goodness.
You down?
Yes, please get the hose. Definitely the hose. I'm sure the audience would love the hose. I am wearing a white shirt. All right. Okay. So also I wanted to talk to you ladies because not only do you have your own show on Pot TV, but there's a reason. You guys have been part of the pot community for a while now. And why don't you guys tell the audience about what happened in Burnaby? You guys founded the first medical marijuana dispensary
as
in Burnaby.
As well as Ryan. We can't.
Right, and
he's
Ryan.
not here
There's
right
a third partner who's
Yep.
not here. But between the 3, it was the first Burnaby dispensary.
Yep.
So tell them what happened.
Well, we opened the dispensary on April 15th, 2011. So almost a year now. Wow. Yeah. And we're in the media a lot. We had newspaper articles all on the Burnaby Now. And the Burnaby Now is a free local newspaper that everybody gets. So one landed on the RCMP's desk, and they started an investigation. And unfortunately, 3 months later, they raided us and shut us down. Between Ryan, Jordan, and myself, we have 10 charges, and we go to court in May of 2013. We struggled a little bit to get it back open, but now we're a thriving head shop. We sell everything that is available here. I just didn't want them to be able to push us out. Just because that happened, we still have a message that needed to be heard. And just to shut down and close our doors and run to Vancouver, which is the safe zone. Mind you, there was one recent raid on iMedicate, but we're not gonna give up just because of that. We have.
And so now it's the Metrotown Hemp Shop.
The Metrotown Hemp Shop. Yeah.
Right. And people can find that online somewhere. Is there a web address for that?
As of right now, we have our Facebook page. Our online store is still being built. So facebook.com/Metrotown Hemp Shop.
Woo.
Woo.
Yeah, Burnaby.
Go team.
And Burnaby, I know it's right across from Metrotown. It's a nice area there.
Yeah.
Yeah, lots of traffic.
Yeah, Burnaby needs some heads taken over because Burnaby's really boring for the most part.
Burnaby's actually rated the best city in Canada.
To go to sleep in.
Yeah. There's not really much to do there, but
there is a new dispensary actually on Kingsway.
And Boundary.
Right on the other side.
Right on the border. I don't know who it is. Like I haven't heard anything.
Well, iMedicate was close. iMedicate, the one that got raided, was close to the P&E there, so it was close to the border of Burnaby as well. Now there was a complaint against them from the neighborhood. That's why iMedicate was supposedly shut down as well temporarily.
We had all of our neighbors' support.
Yeah, we actually had them all sign letters saying that they were in support of us being open after our raid. So we had a lot of support from the community.
That's a helpful thing to do if you are a dispensary setting up, is make friends with your neighbors.
Well, contribute to local businesses, right? They're your neighbors. We're all in the same place. We all want the same things, and why not support each other? And we had everybody's support, which makes it sad. Like, every single person, after it happened and they saw that we were closed, they would all be like, "Are you okay? Is everything okay? When are you going to reopen? Like, we still want you to be here." It was amazing. There was an outpour from our neighbors. We understand patients always outpour and appreciate you, and we love all of you. If there's any of you out there, we're very sorry we can't help you anymore. But come down to the hemp shop and say hi, because we love seeing you all.
Yeah, we've had a few previous patients come by and say hi.
Good.
Hope that we were back open as a dispensary, but unfortunately we're not.
Most common question, actually.
Yeah, almost every day.
Now, your case, though, isn't until 2013.
2013.
That's right.
Right, so...
The courts are flooded.
They're flooded, and recently, the lawyer, Kirk Tousaw, who we're bringing on the show in just a little bit, he managed to have a case thrown out that was related to cannabis because it took too long.
Was that with Owen Wilson?
I don't think it's the bakery case, but it is a cannabis-related case. I'm pretty sure. We're going to bring him on and ask him about it, but I just happened to come across that little tidbit of information. So I wonder if that might affect your case.
Ours is a year and 5 months.
Yeah, see, in this case, I believe it was 24 months from the time. I think that's why it got thrown out, because they said it was just too long.
We got
our original arrest was July 28th, and then we were formally charged in October.
Right, so this could have an effect on your
And I agree completely. When I saw 2013, I was like, oh. And that also gives us some time where we don't think about it, and we're able to heal and then just get angry, which is good, because we're obviously not happy about the situation.
It is. It's unfortunate. Brittany and I actually were denied entry to the U.S. in February when we were trying to cross the border, so we're not allowed back in the U.S. until we get discharged or we can get written consent from the federal government.
Sorry, guys.
It'll cost us a lot of money to make that happen, if it could even happen. So we're just going to kind of wait it out.
Yeah, once you're flagged, it's difficult to ever. I mean,
yeah,
you gotta go through
and
some
you and
serious
I have actually had some interesting experiences driving. We drove to California and
we did.
Just had one wild trip, and unfortunately the article was too hot for Cannabis Culture. So
we went to the Cannabis Expo.
Yeah.
Yeah, we went to the Intech Cannabis Expo for the first
Cow
time.
Palace.
It was the first annual, and yeah, it was an amazing. Me and Britney, wow, we'd gotten a lot of just about gotten a lot of trouble. Somehow, miraculously, we didn't get arrested.
Yeah,
even though we were driving down a street backwards with weed covered all over us, pulled over by the cops several times.
Several times, with weed all over us.
And yeah, it was
speeding.
It was insane and stupid. But yes, the article actually was it was a little too hot for Cannabis Culture. It was too incriminating for Cannabis Culture, I think, because I really did tell the truth in it, and then I realized that every time I go across the border, the American government is constantly monitoring and
Googling your name.
And if I ever want to see my relatives there again, then yeah, I should probably print some of the things I printed. But that will probably appear one day when I'm totally banned from the US.
We should do a show about it.
We
should do a show about it and just like show pictures and tell a story.
Really funny. It was quite hilarious.
Brittany and I actually filmed some footage that day that we got denied, so I think maybe in the next couple of weeks we'll have that clip on our show also.
Oh, crazy.
We were in the detain room, we're like, we're being detained. It was funny.
Yeah.
Wow,
so
yeah, it's a shame because really they just, I mean, the U.S. is really a beautiful place, and there's lots of great things down there.
Tons of great things, and especially even in the marijuana industry, you know how many shows and whatever we went to down there. So much fun, and it like anything, it makes me sad. And you can fly cheaper through the States, so it's.
That's what we were hoping to do that day.
Yeah. Crazy. Yeah. Well, and so now you guys have your show on Pod TV, so that's we haven't told people when it is. It's every Thursday at 4 p.m. Pacific time.
Yeah.
So you guys can watch Potparazzi, and it'll be more celebrity. No, I do have a clip, actually, I was going to play here. Oh. It's related because it's celebrity gossip about marijuana. And this is a clip from some mainstream news source about Willie Nelson in the country community. Willie is a legend, but look what he's doing now. Watch this clip.
You're watching Coin Local 6 at 6.
Hi, I'm Willie Nelson, and I urge you to support the Oregon Cannabis Tax Act to regulate marijuana and restore industrial hemp.
Oregon's marijuana initiative gets some star power from one of the world's biggest pot smokers. Activists are hoping that Willie Nelson's celebrity will help them collect more than 87,000 signatures to get the Oregon Cannabis Tax Act on the November ballot. He is a country legend, and he got his own Oregon medical marijuana card. Now he's asking all Oregonians for their support.
Well, Casey Montoya has been following this story. I think a question comes up. How can Willie Nelson get an Oregon medical marijuana card when he doesn't live here?
Good question, and you may be surprised to find out that it is actually legal. In June of 2010, the state granted access for people to all get their own medical marijuana cards. All you have to do is live here in the U.S. And now the supporters of this bill are hoping that his superstar celebrity will help them get this on the ballot. This is actually the first celebrity to be endorsing legalizing pot. Willie Nelson could be the world's most famous pot smoker, and he doesn't hide it.
Let our criminal justice officers focus limited resources on real criminals and not on marijuana users like me.
Nelson is using his fame to help marijuana activists in Oregon get enough signatures to put the Oregon Cannabis Tax Act, or ACTA, on the November ballot.
His endorsement is a big help for us, and it's definitely raised the awareness of our initiative out there.
Paul Stanford owns THCF Medical Clinics, a chain focused on helping qualified patients find doctors to prescribe medical marijuana cards. Stanford says he's helped other members of Nelson's band get their cards, and after an incident with police in Arizona a few weeks ago, Nelson decided it was time to get his own card, but it wasn't his first.
He'd had a card previously through us in Hawaii, but he let that lapse, so we've renewed his Hawaii card and got him an Oregon card in Washington and Nevada.
Stanford says Nelson has chronic pain from a broken back that got him medically discharged from the Air Force. He also suffers from carpal tunnel syndrome. In this message gaining momentum online, Nelson lists the other reasons to support ACTA.
ACTA will also allow farmers to grow hemp for fuel, fiber, and food, to create jobs and help our economy.
According to a Harvard economist, legalizing and taxing marijuana would generate hundreds of millions of dollars every year. Nelson is one of nearly 56,000 patients currently in the Oregon medical marijuana program.
Thank you very much.
Well, it hasn't had an impact on signature gathering yet, but they are very hopeful that it will. Right now, they have 55,000 signatures. They need 87,000, but they say they're going to collect 130,000 to make sure they're all valid, and they have until July 6th to do that. Kelly?
All right, we're back. So, yeah, that was Willie Nelson. So, Willie's been around for a long time. He's like one of the oldest celebrities probably supporting our cause. He's been a diehard supporter. He's been harassed for pot as well many times down at the border in Texas and stuff. But I'm glad to see Willie doing that. I think he's also part of this the Teapot Party.
Yep.
Yeah. What is that? Do you know about that really? I don't really know. I think it's just kind of a loose association of people down in California or other places. I think the guys from celebstoner.com are kind of spearheading that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyways, we have Kirk Tousaw on the line. We have a lot of stuff to talk to Kirk about. And Kirk, we were just talking with Britney and Jordan about their case, and we mentioned that, or I came across the information that you have recently won a case by arguing that the time period from when it all happened to when the court case actually went through was way too long. Can you tell us about that case?
the charges against him as a remedy. And I was fortunate enough to have the judge agree with that argument, and the charges against my client were stayed.
Excellent. Now, Kirk.
They're saying they can't hear Kirk.
Oh, they can't. They're saying they can't hear Kirk too well. Marius, can you move it just a little bit closer to the speaker, I guess? Yeah. So, and it's coming out of the bottom.
It's a distortion.
I don't. Is it distorted? You don't need to put your hand in front of it, but just there's speakers on both sides.
Oh,
here, I'll show you. Like this. That's where it's coming out. So if you go like that, there you go.
Okay.
Awesome. So, Kirk, what happened in that case? Is something like that possible with Britney and Jordan's case here? Now, they won't be going to trial till 2013 at some point, and if you add all the time up, I mean, it is quite a stretch. Do you think that might be possible?
Well, I mean, that's something we want to explore closer to the date of trial to determine what are the factors for the delay. Why does it take so long to go to trial? Part of the difference is my other client's case was pretty much an uncomplicated case. There was no need for significant court time, and the guidelines that are applied to determine whether the delay has been undue or not have to take into consideration the complexity of the case. And so obviously if you have a case that is going to require a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks of court time, it takes a little more time to get that scheduled in the ordinary course of things. But it's certainly an argument that may be open to them, and one that we would explore closer to the date of trial.
Right. So now, Kirk, about the raids that have been happening on dispensaries in British Columbia, and I think there was one elsewhere, but they seem to have ceased from the RCMP. Now, we did see this iMedicate dispensary raided here in the city of Vancouver. I guess that was due to some sort of complaints. But is this something that you think we're going to see more of from the RCMP, or is this is this all based on complaints, all of these cases? Is that how the RCMP is arguing that they're going after them?
Well, I certainly can't speak to what motivates the police in each instance. I only have information about some of these matters as a result of hearing what anyone else can hear in published news reports or other places like Cannabis Culture that have been doing good reporting on this issue. But certainly when I speak to people about entering the marijuana industry, either as a producer, as a distributor, as a compassion club, one of the things that attracts attention of law enforcement authorities is whether or not your neighbors are complaining. And so it's always best to follow the golden rule, make sure that your presence in a particular neighborhood benefits the neighborhood as much as possible, makes the neighborhood a better place, and minimizes any anxiety that you may have amongst neighboring businesses or people. And if you can do that, you can eliminate a fairly decent chunk of some of the problems. But in any particular case, the fact of the matter is, at least for compassion clubs, the business that they're engaged in is not a lawful business. There is some antipathy towards it on the part of at least some individual police officers, perhaps institutionally, in certain police departments. I don't know that. I'm not an officer. I'm not privy to their inner workings. But I think something we ought to all agree on is that there's better uses for police dollars than spending months, weeks, or months investigating compassion clubs, then shutting them down and forcing the members out onto the streets or into the public to obtain medicine from the black market. I mean, most people support compassion clubs. Most people support access to medical marijuana. And hopefully we can all agree that our police forces have much more serious issues to deal with than critically and chronically ill Canadians accessing a safe and beneficial natural health product like marijuana.
Right. So, Kirk, I wanted to talk to you about the bakery case going on in Victoria, and where that's going now, the constitutional challenge. Where are we at there? Has there been any movement since the last time we talked to you about that?
Well, we've got a fixed date on the 28th of March, and the purpose of that appearance is to be given a date for the judge's decision on the charter and common law applications that we made arguing against the charges. I have no idea when that date will be. It'll be determined solely by the judge and when he's able to deliver his decision. I would expect it to be sometime in April, but you never know. We certainly be happy to be back on after the
So, Kirk, for those who don't know, can you explain a little bit about the constitutional challenge and the case that is ongoing there in Victoria? Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Right. Right. So, Kirk, I wanted to talk about Bill C-10, and in this bill that's just been passed, so now Canadian law, I guess it's even had royal assent and everything, there are they target extracts and edibles specifically with mandatory minimums, don't they? And isn't it something like 18 months? Do you know the specifics of that particular portion of it? Right. Speaking of the prisons, I don't know if you saw this, Kirk, but it's been shared around a little bit. The GEO group, there's the Office of the Commissioner of Lobbying in Canada has an entry for the lobbyist for the GEO group, and they've been sort of pushing forward, I guess. We're trying to find out if they've had any meetings with the government, the private prison industry. The GEO group, of course, is the private prison group, and Mark was staying in one of their dungeon-like prisons in a huge dorm room. It was really poor conditions. But Kirk, what about private prisons coming to Canada? Do we know, do you know anything about that? Is there, what would that look like if they were able to start bringing that to Canada? Or, I just don't really see how it works exactly. Right. Now, Kirk, I wanted to talk about where the pot community really goes from here in terms of fighting the new draconian laws that have been put in place here. What kind of actions can we do, or how do we fight now that these laws have been put through? Is it through the courts that we should be really doing a lot of this fighting, like the stuff that you're working on, or what? I'm just wondering what you think is the best way and where we go from here. Right, so we're stuck with 4 years, these conservatives, unless some crazy scandal happens, which I'm hoping for. But yes, of course, take these parties over. And we see even the Liberal Party now has really made legalization a pillar of their platform. So it kind of it's easy, I guess, when you start working from within these parties. Sometimes it might be easier to convert people than you think. But now and I guess it works both ways. Kirk, you're a New Democrat, and so am I. Did you happen to see Thomas Mulcair's comments? He's he's the front runner for the party right now. Did you see his decriminalization flip flop? Who are your top three, or are you willing to talk about that live on TV? Cool. And Kirk, you know, I'm springing all these crazy questions on you. Might as well throw this one out there. You've run before for the NDP. Would you ever consider running again at any level?
Yeah, I mean, I think if the circumstances were right, Jeremy, I certainly would. But, you know, the last experience was a difficult one. Not so much for me. I'm a pretty tough guy. I can handle it. But it was a difficult one for my family, particularly my children, because of I would say the sort of concocted controversy that arose about my cannabis consumption. You know, I think it's ridiculous. I think as adults we have to have moved beyond that sort of sticker and, oh my goodness, he uses cannabis so he can't be a member of politics phase of our evolution. But I certainly would have to think long and hard before exposing, you know, my family to the possibility that would rear its head again.
Right.
But, you know, given the right conditions, the right climate, and of course given the NDP remaining the kind of party that I want to participate in, and I certainly hope it does. You know, you never want to foreclose opportunities, right? You always want to keep your mind open to whatever the future can bring.
Yeah, exactly, Kirk. Well, yeah, it definitely, that was a sort of traumatizing thing. But, you know, recently when Dana ran, I was happy to see that things kind of changed a little bit. And Dana, I guess, slugged it out again. And at first it was a little tough, but he really sort of earned some legitimacy here in British Columbia, at least in the press, I guess. And so, yeah, I wonder if that landscape has changed at all. But one way or another, we'll be watching Kirk to see what goes on. Anything that you want to tell people, Kirk? Is there any website addresses you want to drop or anything?
Well, I mean, I think people can always keep up with what we're doing at cannabisculture.com and wineprohibition.ca. I'm going to try to start blogging on a more regular basis at TousawLaw.ca. And hopefully we can continue to build momentum for ending marijuana prohibition, either legislatively or through the courts. And thanks a lot for having me on this afternoon.
Always a pleasure to have you on, Kirk. Thanks for coming on again. We'll have you again soon, of course, to talk about all the different things that are happening. Yeah, I guess we have David Malmo-Levine in the house, too, that wants to come up here, or I want him to come up here. Thanks a lot, Kirk.
Thanks, Kirk.
Bye, Kirk.
Bye, Kirk.
Bye, Kirk. David.
Hello, Pod TV viewers.
Oh, here, let me scoot out of here. No, you guys can stay. And yeah. No, they want to see you.
Okay. What I have here is a wrapping pouch for blonde Lebanese hashish, circa 1970. This wrapping paper for hash is older than I am. It's got some markings on it. What appears to be an eagle with a snake in its mouth sitting on a globe. I don't know. Here, I'll show you up close so you can see that. And it's on loan from a Keith Long. Can you see that? Is that coming through?
Can't tell right now.
You can't tell right now?
It's coming
on here.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
It was coming up.
It was coming well. Okay.
Yeah.
So it has some writing on it, too. It has a number 4 circled, and then a 504 minus 13 equals 491. Whatever that means.
Huh.
But blonde Lebanese hash, well, probably this would have been about $500 worth back in 1970. So, one can only speculate. But it's one of the many really cool things at the Herb Museum, which is opening up soon. If you're in the Vancouver area, stay tuned for that. We're going to have a massive opening, and it's going to be open every day. And if you're not in the area, we're going to shoot some film down there, and you'll get a taste of the Herb Museum. And if you want to see some of the artifacts we have on display, go to herbmuseum.ca and check out that.
Awesome. Now, David, I have you here, and
Yes.
we played the clip earlier on the show of the Young Turks talking about pot, cancer, and the like.
Yeah.
Tell people about your blog post again, and if you've heard anything back from the Young Turks.
Well, no, I haven't heard anything back from the Young Turks. The blog post, which you can still see, I think it's still on the front page of the cannabisculture.com.
That it is.
It's caused some debate, but the people who say, oh, you know, smoking's bad, smoking anything is bad, We really don't have any evidence to point to that. You can point to tobacco smoking is bad. Tobacco smoking is bad, especially tobacco that's been grown in radioactive chemical fertilizer. That's bad for you. We don't have as much evidence to prove that organic tobacco smoking is bad. But we do know that the spike in lung cancer rates started around the turn of the century after radioactive chemical fertilizers were introduced in the 1850s, not after the introduction of tobacco in the 1600s, 15 and 1600s. So, just to illustrate that point, you want to maybe look at the evidence of mouth cancers and esophagus cancers and lung cancers coming from pipe tobacco and cigars, and then after the 1870s, cigarettes, and see whether that correlates to the introduction of tobacco or the introduction of chemical fertilizers. So I suspect most lung cancers from smoking are actually chemical fertilizer related, not tobacco related. That hasn't been proven, but there's evidence to suggest that. But there's no evidence to suggest that smoking mullein or kinnikinnick or opium or cannabis or any of these non-tobacco, non-radioactive tobacco smoked medicines are cancerous. And I just think that people have to get over their smokophobia and, you know, start to research it for yourself. Don't take my word for it. There's a link to a lot of information that's been posted up in the forums at cannabisculture.com. The links at the bottom. There's a couple of links from the forums at the bottom of the article on the home page. And then take that as a starting point and do your own research. Look into it yourselves. Find out, first of all, see if you can find one example, one case, one person, the name of one dude or dudette who died of lung cancer from marijuana-only smoking. I'd like to, you know, if they existed, wouldn't they be on the front page of every newspaper in the world right now? Because the guys who are selling synthetic medicines and synthetic fuels are just dying for an example of, look, marijuana smoking kills. Don't use it anymore. It's bad for you. There isn't one. There's never been one. I doubt there ever will be one because it doesn't kill. It actually protects people who do smoke tobacco from getting cancer. It has a protective tumor shrinking quality to it. They don't completely understand it, but if anything, cannabis cures cancer, doesn't cause cancer. So look into it for yourself. Don't take my word for it. Dr. Donald Tashkin is the foremost authority on lung cancers in the United States, and he says he couldn't find a marijuana-only smoker to get lung cancer. So look at the stuff I've pointed out in that article, and look at the stuff in the forums, and then look in your library and look on the internet and ask your doctors and research it for yourself, because it was a misinformation campaign that made marijuana illegal. It's going to be a re-education campaign to make it legal again. And if you can't be politically active in a party, or you want to do more than just be politically active in a party, become a cannabis educator. Become a connoisseur of this stuff. Learn everything you can about cannabis and then teach others. Teach people around you. Become aware of these things. Become like an urban shaman. Become a master of your own medical destiny. Become medically autonomous and medically aware. And, you know, the truth will set you free.
Awesome. Thanks, David.
Okay. Yeah.
Amazing. Always.
Oh, and check out the Herb Museum.
The animated David Malmo-Levine.
Herbmuseum.ca for more edumacation.
That's right. And that will be open soon. Second floor,
Yes.
307 West Hastings in Vancouver.
And the website's open
Come
right
down
now.
to the Pot Block,
Oh,
ladies and
also,
gentlemen.
We've also potshot.ca.
Ah.
We've been loading up old issues of Potshot on the interwebs. So if you want to see the beginnings of my educational experience, the first 19 issues of my zine will be uploaded soon. We've got 6 and 7 and 9 through 19 up. The rest
And
are up soon.
what's it at now? What is the total magazine count?
19.
19,
I'm
okay.
working on 20 right now. It'll be like a full color issue. Yeah.
Very cool.
Super snaz.
Lots of great stuff in Potshot magazine.
That's right. You'll like Potshot. It's cutting edge.
And
history.
some great research. You've put in some larger articles that have a lot of work put into them.
I figure anything that can pass over a photocopying machine is fair game. You know.
Oh, sorry, here.
All right. Anyway, later.
Thanks, David.
See you. Thanks, David.
Love ya. All right. Well, that was an awesome show. 5 o'clock. Here we go. I guess the Vapor Central will probably be doing something tonight. They usually come in before 6 o'clock at some point. They'll probably watch. I don't know if they're in the chat. But thanks, guys, for hanging out in the chat. It was a good show. You ladies, thank you very much for coming on the show.
Thank you for
Awesome
having
to have
us
you
so
here.
much.
And I'm very happy that you guys are doing a show on Pod TV now. It's going to be fun to watch. I'm sure you guys are going to outview everybody. Yeah, you guys are going to be definitely have some fans on here and get some Pod TV fame going on.
Yay.
Hot girls. All right, well, why don't you guys give your websites? Where do people go? I'm going to take this bong rip while you do.
Take it away.
You can find us on Twitter, Potparazzi on Twitter, or on Facebook at Potparazzi. You can contact us personally at Jordan@paparazzi.ca or Britney Ann at paparazzi.ca.
Yeah.
So we encourage our fans to send us mail.
We also have the Metrotown Hemp Shop Facebook page, so that's facebook.com/the Metrotown Hemp Shop.
Awesome.
Thanks.
Excellent.
Thank you
Thanks,
so much.
ladies. And thank you to Kirk for coming on. Kirk Tousaw, lawyer extraordinaire. Unfortunately, we couldn't get the Skype working, but Kirk's always good for a telephone interview. And thanks to Marius. And thanks to Tony for coming on. 911 Truth, 911, what is it, 911, Vancouver 911truth.org.
That's right. Thank you.
All right, guys.
Bye,
And
everyone.
we'll-
Thank you so much.
Exactly. Thank you, and we'll see you guys next week, as
Bye,
usual.
guys.
Peace.
Yay.
It's over.
Let's go get drunk.